This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Ready to go, and he's aboard. Matt Verderame. Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Excellent, brother. Can't complain. Trying to walk people off the ledge a little bit with the Dolphins. You may not follow it nearly as deep as I do. So I'm going to give you a really quick explanation what I think is going on. And so, because I made a mistake. I thought maybe they'd go after, a Derrick Henry or a Patrick Queen or something, an impact guy, but really they weren't going to do that this year. And so I kind of explained that I wouldn't pay for Wilkins, 27.5. I don't believe he's really that kind of pass rusher. If you look at his 9 sacks, they all came mostly against really bad offensive lines and bad teams. The big games he didn't show up in, only the Bills where he had that 1 sack. It was a great play, but he only had that 1 sack in that play. Rob Hunt, it got out of control at $20 million. And Andrew Van Ginkel, I love, but he is 29 coming off a Liz Frank injury, and he won't be ready till training camp. So it's a bit of a gamble, so I understand. So in those 2 years, they hit on a lot of picks. This first wave, I think they said to themselves, do we lose these guys or do we lose Tua, Holland, Waddle, and Phillips next year? So I think they're saving their money for next year to pay for these guys. And now they get a Shaq Barrett in to fill in and help you out while Phillips and Chubb get healthy because they'll be joining you sometime during the season.
Right.
Jordan Poyer fills in next to Holland. That's pretty good. The Aaron Brewer guy is a quick, athletic center, which is what you need in this offense to get to the next level. Jordan Brooks is a good linebacker overall next to David Long. And then you think about it. If you're preparing your cap space for next year because you have these important players, you got to pay your quarterback. Pass rushers are important. Waddle's going to be your number 1 wide receiver in 2 years when Tyreek is gone. So all of a sudden, these are really cornerstone players. I'm not sure if they're cornerstones, the guys you let go now. Then here's the thing. You're getting compensatory picks for the guys you lost this year. Plus you have your whole allotment of picks next year. And the following 2 years after that, you know what their draft picks were? Cam Smith, Achan, Tyndall, and Azukama. The other 4 were 6th and 7th round picks. Forget about that. So the following 2 years, you won't be pressured on a whole bunch of free agents coming out. So you'll be able to focus on other things in the process. So it kind of opens it up for you a little bit. When you put all of that together, I think it makes a shit ton of sense what they're actually doing.
Well, look, I think there's a couple ways to look at it. I would say this. I think that there's truth in the fact that Robert Hunt, look, he's a good player. Robert Hunt is not an $100 million player.
Jesus.
I mean, I thought he might get half of that. I thought the people around the league who thought he might get half of that.
I thought 15, 16. When I saw the one from that guy right before, there was
a lot of people that I spoke to were like, okay, yeah, like 3 and 45.
Right.
I mean, that is an ungodly amount of money. Okay. I mean, I know this isn't like dynamite analysis, but that night I happened to be talking to my dad, who's about the biggest football fan you could ever find. And I said to him, I said, do you know who Robert Hunt is? And he said, I have no idea who Robert Hunt is. I said, well, he got $100 million this afternoon. I said, oh my God, like who gave it to him? So, I mean, that was a reaction. The only one of the contracts, look, I wouldn't have signed Wilkins for that money either. And I like Wilkins a lot. I think Wilkins is a really good football player. But
yeah, man, he's a good player. Damn right he's a good player, but he's better against the run than the pass.
Yeah, I see, if I'm Miami, you already have Sealer inside. Like, I would have tried to pair him with maybe somebody like, I don't know, like a cheaper option inside, maybe somebody, and we'll see what his market is because he's coming off of the knee, but like DJ Reader, who's still out there, someone like that, who's going to cost you maybe half the money, maybe even less if it's a 1-year deal where he's trying to rebound and prove himself again.
They'll probably draft one in the 1st or 2nd round because I think
they can do that too.
Yeah, in the 1st or 2nd round pick, I think it ends up being either O-line, D-line, or corner. think is where they're going.
The
There.
only signing that a teammate of a Dolphins player that I watched and said I would have given him that was Van Ginkel. I would have signed him for that amount of money. I know he's from
20. He's going to be 29. He's
I know.
on he's a Liz Frank injury, and he won't be ready till training camp. Are you sure about that? I love Van Ginkel too, but I kind of understood you're a new defensive coordinator. You need to implement a new defense.
Fine.
I will have Jordan Brooks there from day one to implement my defense. I won't have Van Ginkel there. He'll be standing on the sidelines watching, and I won't be able to use him to training camp. I kind of understood that move. I
would have given it to him. I mean, because in reality, it's a 2-year deal. It's a 3-year contract. It's really a 2-year contract, and it's 29, 30 seasons. I would have given him that contract. Now, I don't mind the Jordan Brooks contract. He is talented. He's a good player. He's inconsistent at times, but he's a good player. I don't mind the contract. That's fine. I don't think there's any way around the fact that the Dolphins lost a lot of talent over the last couple of days. I mean, they did. Now, do I think all of a sudden they're going to go 7-10? No, but they lost a lot of guys. The big thing for the Dolphins for me is how quickly is Phillips coming back? How quickly is Chubb coming back? And then next year now with Hunt gone and some of obviously center, there's a shakeup with Brewer coming in. Like, can Armstead play 15, 16, 17 games? Or is this another year, which he's had at times in New Orleans and Miami, where he's hurt? I mean, they're going to need him to be healthy. They're going to need him to be on the field even more so than in past years. The Poyer signing, look, he's not who he once was, but he's still good enough to be a rotational player. Like I just think right now Miami, look, they're going through a cap crunch because Ramsey's getting paid a fortune. Tyreek Hill's getting paid a fortune. Chubb's getting paid a lot of money. And, as you mentioned, and you're right, they're going to have to pay Waddle. And Waddle in this day and age at receiver is going to get well north of $25 million a year. So, yeah, they're going to look. They're paying a lot of guys, and you'll lose some guys when that happens. But if they continue to draft well, they'll be able to churn through that.
By the way, on the Wilkins front, just so you'll know, 2.5 sacks against the Jets, 2 against New England, 2 against Carolina, 1 against Tennessee, and 0.5 sack against the Giants.
Right.
And then besides
it's a fair point. It's a fair point.
Besides the Josh, that's why, and he kind of took a step back against run defense because he was chasing the sacks. I don't think he'll live up to that contract. I really don't. I think Raider fans eventually, we're paying this guy $27 million. He gets 4 or 5 sacks a year, because that's really what he averaged for 4 years until this past year. That's it. It was 4 or 5 sacks every year is what he had. And so that's why that one I didn't have a problem with, man. I didn't have a problem with it. I kind of understood what they were doing in that one. All right. You tell me what's standing out so far in free agency for you that you really like.
Free agency typically tends to be a trap, but I think a few teams have gotten better. I think Pittsburgh, stealing Patrick Queen away, that's a nice job. I'm not a big Russ Wilson guy at this point. I don't know how many people are. At the same point,
he's better than what they have.
Yeah, I mean, he's like Joe Montana compared to Kenny Pickett. So, I mean, you're better there. I don't love trading away Deontay Johnson in a vacuum, but you know what I love less? Watching Deontay Johnson pout and give no effort on the field half the time. And so I don't blame them for trading him. And they got back Dante Jackson, who's a good corner who replaces Peterson. So I like what Pittsburgh's done.
By the way, it's Pittsburgh.
They'll find another guy.
Shit receivers,
bro. They'll find another guy. They'll draft somebody in the second round who'll have 1,000 yards.
Yeah. Pickens guy, he's so freaking talented, this Pickens guy. Now, he's a bit of a head case.
Yes, but he's incredible.
That's another problem with them lately. Over the last, they take chances on guys that we end up finding out, yo, dude, do you ever check their maturity part of it? Because you bring in a lot of knuckleheads, man.
They do.
Tomlin's better than what we think he is because he has to deal with these assholes all the time. From Ben Roethlisberger all the way to Deontay Johnson and everybody in between. I mean, it really is challenging for Mike Tomlin. That front office constantly takes chances on people with just shady characters, dude. It's amazing.
Yes, they do. But I think their offseason so far has been good. I like Philadelphia. Look, Bryce Huff coming in. He's going to give because here's what Roseman's going to do now. Okay, they're going to trade Reddick and Sweat, and they're going to get a whole bunch of draft picks, and they're still going to have Nolan Smith and Bryce Huff coming off the edges with Jalen Carter inside, and then they're going to have all these picks to just load up everywhere else. I like that they brought in C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They brought him back. They negotiated with him last offseason, and they couldn't get a deal done. He took a one-year deal in Detroit. Now he's back on 3-36 in Philly. That's a big need for them, taken care of. He knows the team. He knows the personnel, so that's great. I'm not a big pay the running back guy, but Saquon Barkley, if you're going to pay him, that's the guy to pay. So they pay him. That offense is going to be insane between him and Ertz, Goddard at tight end, and then the two receivers on the outside, and Brown and Smith. Good luck stopping that team. That team is going to score 30 points in its sleep every night. So I like what they did. And then, it's weird to say this because they lost Kirk Cousins, but I like what Minnesota did in a lot of other areas. I like the Van Ginkel signing, as I mentioned. I like the Blake Cashman signing. I think he's a good player. And I really like the Jonathan Grenard signing. Now, they lose Danielle Hunter, but that's fine. They got a little younger there. The big thing with them is can they find their quarterback in the draft? I mean, that is the big, massive, looming question. Because they can, it's all worthless. But they got to do that. And then lastly, I thought, Washington, I think, made smart signings. They didn't go out and spend the $100 million guy. They went out and they got Dorrance Armstrong. And, they got a center for $330. And they brought in Nick Allegretti from the Chiefs, who I think is going to be a really nice guard for them. And they just kind of filled in holes on that team. And I thought it was smart. It wasn't, they upgraded their front seven, a little bit. They were just smart. And that's something that you never say about the Commanders ever. So that's a step in the right direction. I don't think all of a sudden they're going to be gangbusters, but they improved the offensive line, get a couple of new starters in front of whoever they drafted second overall. They got better near the line of scrimmage. I still think they've got to fix their secondary, but overall, I like the moves that they made. I think they're a better team now than they were, 72 hours ago.
What happens with Bird on your team? Does he sign or does he get traded? Because the money's drying up.
So I've been texting everybody around this for days on end. I think the expectation with Sneed is that they are still more likely to trade him than not. But to your point, yeah, the money is drying up. And not only is the money drying up, but all these corners going off the board,
options.
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
he has less places to go to as time goes on.
The other thing that's notable here, and it kind of was an under the radar thing because, unless you're really focused on the Chiefs, you probably just scrolled right by it. Mahomes restructured $21.6 million of his deal yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that.
That means that they have about 15.5 in cap right now, so they're compliant going into the new league year this afternoon. They don't have to move Sneed now. Before, it was well, they've got to move him to get under the cap. Now, if you're paying attention to Kansas City, the Mahomes money was coming. I mean, they were going to do that. Now that they've done it, they create a little bit more leverage for themselves. On the flip side, the counterbalance to that is teams are going to be dropping out of this idea of trading for Sneed because they're going to go, look, we either don't have the money or we don't need him because we signed somebody else. And that's where this becomes interesting. Look, I still think it's more likely than not that he gets dealt. However, if he's not traded by the end of the week, then I think it's more likely he stays. At some point, it just becomes.
I got something else for you here that I'm sure he and his agent have talked about. We got to be very careful here because you might get your money, but you might end up on a shitty team for several years. So that's the other thing that you've been playing on a franchise that actually tries to win all the time, and they've got the best player on the freaking planet.
Right.
So yeah, you might make a couple million more somewhere else, but are you really going to be as happy as you are here right now after what you've witnessed, and you're on the brink of maybe a three-peat? So you got to, some of these players, bro, the money, you're going to get paid a lot of money wherever you go. And I get it. And it's only one time, but man, doesn't it matter where you're at? You know what I'm saying? And if I'm going to trade for leave Kansas City, I just can't leave for the money only. I have to also leave for, a good organization. After I've been with a good organization, do I really want to be with a bunch of slapdicks? Probably not.
Well, it's going to be very interesting. He did an event in Kansas City on Tuesday, and he was asked about his situation, and he reiterated multiple times he wants to stay with the Chiefs. Now, does that mean he's going to do it? Who knows? Okay. Chris Jones reiterated that a whole bunch, and it took them giving him $160 million for him to stay in Kansas City.
Fair deal, bro. It was a fair deal.
Well, I mean, look, the reality is it's 3 years and $95 million with two team options. So fair
deal, bro. The team didn't get ripped off. He didn't rip them off.
No, it's fine. But I mean, it took them going to the map. But I mean, it got done.
You want Mahomes on defense?
Right.
You got to pay for it, bro.
Hey,
I mean, the way
you know how I feel. I've said that to you for a year. I agree with you. So I mean,
bro, he's a game changer.
Yeah,
you have to game plan for that. That's my problem with Wilkins. That's the question I asked everybody. I said, "Do you game plan for Christian Wilkins?" No. So then why would you pay him that?
Right.
I'm paying $27 million to somebody I game plan for. I game plan for Jalen Ramsey.
Right. Correct.
I have to game plan for Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
These are people I have to game plan for. Okay. Chubb, up until McDaniel had a brain fart and leaving him in a game for no reason and got injured, he had a season that you had to game plan for his ass.
Yep.
He was getting sacks. He had like 5 or 6 forced fumbles. I mean, it was ridiculous what he was doing. You got a game plan for that. Nobody, no offensive coordinator starts their week by, well, we got to see where Christian Wilkins is at the entire time. Nobody ever says that. That's who you pay $28 million to, those kind of players. And that's the other reason why I wouldn't have paid Wilkins, because he's not that guy. Chris Jones, brother, your entire offensive game plan in the interior goes all around that man. On every single down, you must go over 3 or 4 times who's responsible for him. That's it. That's you pay that.
There's no question. There's no question. And I think, look, there are very few players in the NFL, non-quarterbacks, who when you play a team, you go, okay, that guy. What are we doing with that guy? Tyreek Hill's one of them. Justin Jefferson's one of them.
Right.
Chris Jones, T.J. Watt, Aaron Donald. Those are the kinds of players, to your point, you pay them because they are worth whatever they get. When you have got, I mean, look, I've obviously watched Chris Jones very closely his entire career. I feel very confident in saying they would not have one Super Bowl ring without him. I mean, the best game I ever saw him play was not this past season, but the year prior against the Bengals in the AFC title game. I mean, you go watch the film of that game, it's unbelievable. I mean, he single-handedly destroyed Cincinnati in that game. I think he hit Burrow like 8 times by himself in that game.
Yeah.
So, look, you pay him. But, I'll tell you the whole thing.
I talked about it all year, dude. The defense carried the offense this year.
Oh, no question. No question.
Jesus Christ, dude.
The one thing, by the way, not to move off the Chiefs, although it is moving off the Chiefs, it stays in the AFC. I think it's interesting. The one team that's still way over the cap right now, and we are approaching we got about 4.5 hours. The Chargers. Do they know they need to be cap compliant? No. Hey, guys, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, all with cap hits over $32 million. Bosa's got 2 years left on his deal. The other 3 guys are slated for free agency after this. I think the Chargers are sitting there waiting to make a trade. And I got to tell you, they're not trading Mike Williams. I don't see any way in the world they trade Mike Williams. He's going to get released. They're going to save $20 million.
They have no leverage.
None. Zero. Why the hell would you do it?
Stupid.
So Bosa and Mack, I mean, maybe there's a world because some team doesn't want to have to bid for him. You get like a 4th rounder or something, 5th rounder from Mack. He's older. I know the Chargers can sit there and say, well, we can restructure all these guys. You're out of your mind. No. You're going to extend all these guys? They're all over 30. What, you're going to extend them to their 50? What are you going to do with these guys?
And injury prone.
Yes, every one of them. Honestly, all kidding aside, if I'm the Chargers, I might extend Allen for a year or two just because you need a receiver and he's a great player.
Yeah. And he's been your guy forever.
He's the guy. The other three guys, there is zero chance in hell they're on my roster. If I've got to post-June 1 them, fine with Bosa. If I've got to cut them outright, fine. Because if I'm Harbaugh, I'm resetting that entire roster. This idea that the Chargers are going to be this team that, oh, here they come. Their roster sucks. Their roster sucks. They got a bunch of old injured guys. They've got Derwin James, who also gets injured all the time. And other than that, it's like, what do you have? You have Slater, who's another guy who's been injured. You have Herbert, who, fine, okay. And what else? What else do you have? I mean, if I'm the Chargers, I don't care if I win 4 games this year. I am just clearing the decks. I'm getting cap space. I'm getting younger. I'm getting guys who don't have injury histories, and I'm moving forward. Like, that's what I'm doing. So the idea that they're going to just extend and restructure is bonkers. That would be the worst decision. I'd rather get nothing for them and just get them off the team and reset the team than restructure them. But they are apparently weighing all options here with about, like I said, about 5 hours or so left to go here before the new league year kicks in.
I wonder, because those are going to become bargains for people out there, because again, the money's not going to be there for those guys like it would have been a few days ago. So it's going to be interesting to see how that's real. People are talking about, like, down here we had people writing, oh, it's going to be cap hell. And it's not cap hell. This is part of the process. Cap hell is what the Chargers are going through. That's cap hell right there.
Yes, it is.
Miami is going to be very competitive this year. And if the coach matures and they have better luck with injuries down the stretch than they have the last 2 years, actually, they might win a playoff game. They can be better this year than they were the last 2 years, but they need a couple of things to actually, materialize. The Chargers, that's cap hell, dude. That's real cap hell right there. That's cap mismanagement right there. And the amazing part is that the Raiders scooped up Telesco.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Oh my God. As long as I live, I'll never get it. The Raiders had a front row seat to that. And we're like, you know what we want? That's what we want. Like, it's unbelievable. It's almost like if you watch like Richie Kotite, the 90s coach, and the Dolphins, like when Shula left, the Dolphins are like, listen, you know what? Kotite. That's what we want, because we saw him 4 times up close. He's going to get us over the hump. Like, I can even understand it.
We've done that. No, we've done that. Mike Tannenbaum. We hired Mike Tannenbaum after watching what he did with the New York Jets. So
he did. Wasn't good.
We are guilty of doing stupid shit like that.
It just goes to show in the NFL. I was told a long time ago, I won't say by who because he's prominent enough that I don't want to get him in trouble. I was a young writer at the time. I wouldn't even say a reporter because I didn't have sources yet. And I was sitting there watching a game, multiple games actually, with this person. And I made an observation that I thought was somewhat insightful. And he was like, you should write that. And I said, yeah, I don't know. I said, I think I'm right, but I'm not 100% sure. Like, if a coach doesn't agree with it, then I'm probably wrong. And I was in like my mid-20s at the time. And he looked at me. He was like, most of these guys are glorified gym teachers. Just fucking write it. And I kind of laughed. And he was like, no, seriously. The further you get in this business, the more you're going to realize half these guys have no clue what the hell's going on. And you know what? About 10 years later, he's right. There are things that happen. I have had people in front offices ask me, would you sign this guy for this amount of money? And like, I don't know, man. Would you sign him? Like, I mean, it's crazy. And the Telesco thing is just, I mean, how did you watch how that ended? And not even like 5 years later, like, oh, maybe he's learned, like immediately, like as he was getting his key card revoked in LA, the Raiders are like, don't go anywhere. We're sending a private jet. It's just, okay.
Yeah, no, it's hilarious. It really is. All right. What do you got going on in Sports Illustrated, so folks can. I know what it is. Wait a minute. You're going to write about Aaron Rodgers, Vice President of the United States. That's what.
Oh, God, man. I did my Matt Verderame show.
Are we really watching politics or just a bunch of SNL skits?
I mean,
because
listen,
Trump and Robert Kennedy. These are all it's
unbelievable. I'm with you 1,000%, man. I'm with you 1,000%.
The writers of Saturday Night Live are going, brother. This is like endless amounts of material that they're
going to have to extend the show. They're going to have to do like Friday Night Live. I mean, listen. I'm with you, man. I used to always make fun of Trump on Twitter. I stopped doing it because people are like, you're a liberal. And I'm like, I'm actually an independent. I make fun of all these people. It's just ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, but the Trumpies are like the most butthurt people I've ever seen in my life. Dude.
I'm like, bro, you got to calm down a little bit. Like, come on. Like, you got to be able to laugh when he says Yosemite, okay? Like, breathe a little bit. But in any event, then there's also, like, everything going on now. As far as what's going on, dude, free agency coverage, wall to wall. I've got all the grades up. I'm doing the 10 best available free agents remaining. That'll go up this afternoon. Just a whole lot of free agency coverage. And I did tweet out my 90-second potential conversation between Aaron Rodgers and Woody Johnson. I did it as part of my Matt Verderame show, and I tweeted out that clip. So if people want to see what I think the conversation might look like this summer, it involves him calling Woody Johnson Woodman. So that's where this whole thing's headed. And personally, I can't wait to see how it unfolds.
Follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. Catch his work there at Sports Illustrated. Matt, as always, appreciate you. We'll catch up next week, my friend.
Sounds good. Take care.
Thank you, sir. All right. Good stuff as always.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.